Darkstar, we were wrong. We were so wrong. So utterly wrong. Such about Koepka being on the Ryder Cup team. How could we have gotten it so wrong? It was such an obvious choice. So it's so obvious that no, it wasn't so obvious. And we've really worked hard to come up with where we went off track and what the reason is. And where did we get off track? Where did we get off track? I'll tell you right now where we got off track. The friendships, respect, the relationship between Koepka and the core of the Ryder Cup team, and more importantly, the core of the Ryder Cup team and Koepka. That friendship or relationship was, we had it 175 degrees off target. We thought that, and part of our analysis last week was that Koepka didn't really have any friends on the Ryder Cup team. Yeah, colleagues, sure. Friendly, yeah, sure. But friends? No, he didn't have any friends there. And the other way around, that the team didn't really, they weren't particularly friendly with Brooks. He's not like JT and Spieth. Come on. Who is Brooks' good buddy on the team? That's where we were off track because we built then towards the golf aristocracy and such in a way that didn't factor in team energy, that what the team wanted. Well, if we had gotten that part differently, if we had thought, no, the team absolutely needs Koepka. They want Koepka there. If we had thought that, which we didn't, then it would have changed the calculus. It really would have. The points that we made last video are good points, valid points. That part of the analysis is not wrong, but what we're missing is the foundation, which is the team wanted Koepka there. And that's stunning, really, in a lot of ways. And we're going to talk about that right today. Why would the team want him, and the fact that wanting him for their own purposes, why they wanted him, and then why their energy mattered to the golf powers. And let's get into that right now. So I'll come to you, Darkstar. Why do you think the team wanted Koepka?
Well, the players want Koepka because they want to win. I think at Whistling Straits, they talked about this is a new era, meaning the post-Tiger. Tiger's not a vice captain either. So the players want to win. And at the dinner on Tuesday before Eastlake, when Scotty Scheffler tells Zach Johnson, I want Koepka, we want Koepka, I want Sam Burns, the two guys we were off on with our analysis about who were going to be the 6 picks, Koepka and Sam Burns. Scotty Scheffler he's the head guy right now. He's the dominant player on the American side. He wants Koepka. He wants Burns. They were in. We were wrong.
Yeah, well, and there's a relationship there of some kind.
Big relationship between Sam Burns and Scotty Koepka.
Absolutely. They're buddies.
Between Scotty Scheffler, yeah. Yes,
they have a JT, Jordan Spieth kind of relationship. Scheffler's the captain of a pod. Let's throw that out there. We're going to do a show next week, probably. Next week, coming up on the pods and the whole team element, obviously getting ready for the Ryder Cup. We'll be all over that. It's interesting. And more so with Koepka there, which is interesting that they came together that way. But so Scheffler's the captain of a pod, Spieth's the captain of a pod, and then there's the third pod, which is kind of everybody else.
Scheffler and Cantlay, stars, match play stars.
Cantlay is the captain of a pod?
Well, it's the Schauffele. It just is the JT and Spieth are the captains, and it's Schauffele and Cantlay.
It's the everybody else that's not on these other two pods that are in that third pod, but who the captain of that is, that's not so obvious. But that's not the show. So we have the Scheffler pod. He's the captain of that pod, those 4 guys, and that's the system that they're using, and it's been working. It's a great system, let's just say. And, Zach's talking to Scheffler like, well, who do you want, in your pod? You're the captain. Who do you want? Well, I want Burns. Okay, because he's my buddy. Okay, done. He's in the running. He's like 12th he was ranked, but near the bottom for Ryder Cup points. So we'll pick him. Okay, fine. Who else do you want in there? Oh, I'll take Harman because he's an automatic. So I want him. I like him. So Brian Harman. Okay, fine. And then who else do you want? Well, I want Koepka. Really? I can imagine Zach like, what? Really? And Zach has made it clear now that he's been in talks with Koepka, and Koepka really did himself a favor working and telling Zach he really wants to be there. We'll add that to this YouTube show as well. Not right now, but that Koepka did himself a lot of favors, and good for him. It says a lot about Koepka. We'll get to that towards the back half of this episode. But there they are filling out the pod, and Scheffler really wants him. Okay, why though? Why is that? Yes, he wants to win, for sure. He's a competitor. He's a racehorse, sure. But why Koepka? Why not somebody else that could play well on that team? Why not Glover? Why not Cam Young, who's playing really well? Why not Keegan Bradley, who's playing very well? Why is that? Why not those three guys? Why Brooks?
Scheffler wants that for he needs an imposing figure. Scotty Scheffler is a nice guy. Brooks Koepka is an imposing figure. There's a lot of intimidation that goes on at the Ryder Cup. When Europe started to dominate, Seve and those guys, they were imposing figures that dwarfed the personalities of the Americans, after Nicklaus and Palmer sort of got out of the way. That's a huge, and so that's what Scotty Scheffler needs. Scotty Scheffler needs a little more ego there. He needs an imposing figure. And let's be honest, Koepka is one of the two guys, just like Jordan Spieth, that seems to be able to will the ball in the hole. It's in those big events, is a big-time player. Now, Spieth has been off his game a little bit, but nobody can will the ball in the hole in a major like a Brooks Koepka. Let's not forget, he not just won the PGA, but he really should have won the Masters.
Yeah, he could have easily won the Masters. Good
right.
to John Rahm for putting in such a strong performance. But it had a lot to do with Brooks not putting in a strong performance as well. It wasn't just Rahm. I agree with you, and I'll add this to what you just said about Scheffler. What does it say? It says a lot about Scheffler, actually, that he essentially, because of what you just said about Koepka, and we all know this about Brooks, is a strong guy, right? Says it like it is. There's an imposing figure. I like that as a phrase. Scheffler's basically demoting himself to not being the captain of his own pod. Yeah. Who's going to be the captain, in effect? Brooks Koepka. Brooks Koepka is going to be running that pod, essentially. And I think Scheffler wanted that. So I'll say that Scheffler was uncomfortable for whatever. Maybe because he's not playing great and putting great. He's putting poorly, actually, at the moment. And was just nervous about having to be the number one guy on the team. And if I get Brooks on the team, Brooks will be the number one guy on the team. And then it takes some pressure off of me, which is going to be good for my game. He's just going to help me quite a bit because, of all the things you just said, Darkstar, I'm a nice guy. I have this, I have that. I'm not so sure how this is going to go in Rome, and I don't want to look bad. Brooks will help me a lot. He'll help me where I need help, which is in this, dominating sort of captain role of my pod. What do you think of that take?
I think that's, obviously that's what Scotty needs. And let's go back to, Paris. There must have been some, Scotty must have seen something in Koepka back in Paris, even though the Americans got destroyed. Obviously, Koepka shows he's a team player. Now he's on LIV playing team golf. And maybe they don't go to Bible study together, but obviously we see what Koepka's done with his brother. He's a family guy now. So there's a lot of upside to bring Koepka in.
You bring Koepka onto your team, you're either you are super strong yourself, meaning I am strong enough to have another strong guy in my circle here, and we'll be, equal perhaps, or I'll still be captain, he'll be a close co-captain. Either you're that guy or you're the opposite. You're comfortable deferring leadership to the other guy. Brooks, what do you want to do? And it's certainly emotional, energetically on the course. Brooks brings that to the whole team. So if he's bringing it to the whole team of other 11 guys, then he's certainly bringing it to the pod. And we'll talk more about that. But this whole dynamic is where we're starting here, is that the team wanted Brooks. And then you break it down further, who on the team wanted Brooks the most? Well, it wasn't Patrick Cantlay. Okay. It wasn't Xander Schauffele. It wasn't those guys. It wasn't Max Homa. No. Who was it? It wasn't Spieth. It wasn't Thomas. It wasn't Fowler. Probably not. Those guys are obviously okay with it, or maybe somewhat enthusiastic. Probably not Cantlay. But who was really enthusiastic? Who really wanted him there from the team point of view? Scheffler came out and said that. So there's a data point. And who else? One other guy, Brian Harman.
Yeah, I was shocked Brian Harman came out.
Brian
like
Harman.
That.
So Brian Harman might have the same sort of viewpoint as Scotty Scheffler. I'm just Brian Harman. I'm not, Arnold Palmer by any stretch. Koepka be great. He'll help us. That's like bringing a superstar leader onto our pod and onto our team. And I, Brian Harmon, don't fancy myself a leader. I'm not going to walk through the locker room and rally the guys. That's not going to happen. I'm not that guy. And I'm comfortable enough to say I'm not that guy. And maybe Scheffler is too. Good for them. They know who they are and they know where they stand. And we could really benefit from a guy like Brooks Koepka. That's probably what happened. Because Spieth wouldn't say that. JT wouldn't say that. Fowler probably wouldn't even say that. Those other guys maybe to some extent. But there you go. So the whole team is comfortable with Brooks sort of, I don't want to say taking over, but, in a sense, he's going to be the player with the most power as far as presence goes. Okay, moving along to the golf aristocracy. Why did they go along with this? Because we spent a lot of time in the analysis that Brooks wasn't going to get picked, basing it on the golf aristocracy and what they want. Well, what do they want? They want a happy fan base. They want a happy fan base, and the fan base is unhappy with LIV. So why put a LIV guy on the All-Star team for the PGA Tour? Essentially, that's what it is, because that will tick off the fan base. We don't want that. We want the deal to go through. That's our focus. That's 1, 2, and 3 priority. So we don't want any interruptions or distractions to that. So Koepka just is a distraction, and Koepka doesn't care about being there in our analysis, which was wrong. And the team doesn't really want him there in our analysis, which was wrong. So we got that personal dynamic between Koepka and Harmon and Scheffler in this breakdown. We got it. We didn't weight it at all, which would have changed the dynamic, because the golf aristocracy, our analysis there and our conclusion there is still dead on. What do they want? Well, it's obvious what they want. It is obvious what the golf aristocracy. They want a healthy golf ecosystem, because their purposes aren't served if the ecosystem's not happy and healthy. And it's not terribly happy or healthy right now. But we want it to be that way, and we're going to do a deal, and that's going to, we'll get on the right trajectory. And certainly the guys putting in a fresh $2-3 billion really expect things to get better. You don't buy a stock at the bottom and then expect it not to go up. So Yasser wants the thing to, now he's not interested in money from the new cooperation, because there isn't going to be any. The golf doesn't make money. It's not that kind of sport. It's not big enough. But serves his deal-making purposes, and that's what he wants, so he needs it to be healthy. As a team, let's tie the two together. If the U.S. team wants Koepka, if Scheffler and Harmon want Koepka, and then you tell them dictatorially, no, we can't have a LIV guy there, and they get demotivated. Of course, they couldn't change that. They'd be like, okay, fine. Get Keegan Bradley or Glover, sure. Or Cam Young, sure, fine. But they're demotivated. They're not getting what they want. And they show up in Rome and they don't play well. They're not, and even more important than that, they're not emotionally invested in the thing. Then the show is hurt. And the show being ho-hum is bad news for the golf aristocracy. It's bad for everybody. Nobody at PGA Tour, nobody at PIF, nobody at PGA of America especially, not only strategically but tactically, wants that. So none of the golf aristocracy wants a bad show in Rome. And we're hearing unequivocally now from the team that needs to show up that if they don't get what they want, they're going to show up and be phoning it in, perhaps. Ooh, that's not a risk we're willing to take in exchange for maybe ticking off some fans, which we don't want either. But we're measuring those two things. And perhaps they actually did do the smart thing, which is go focus group this and hire somebody to go do that. Took the temperature of the PGA Tour fan base, and the fan base said, we want to win. We love the Ryder Cup. We want that thing to go well. And that outweighed their dislike of LIV. Fine. And then look what happened. So it is that, and if that's accurate, then that says a lot about Nuco's potential. That means Nuco's in a pretty good place, because the fan base of PGA Tours, if they're willing to overlook Koepka and LIV, because they like Koepka so much, which is the flavor of the press reporting that we're getting, if they're willing to do that, then what's wrong with having Nuco and 2 tours? That starts to look okay, right? Well, this is a good trial balloon for that, and the show will go on, and the show will succeed. But we need the U.S. team to show up there happy and healthy and motivated, and that's in the interest of PIF and PGA Tour and the deal. So good. And if the show goes really well, it also takes some of the attention off of the deal. Also good. They would much rather negotiate that deal in the back room. Now, before we finish up this show, Darkstar, I definitely want to hear from you on the PGA Tour rank and file, because we know they're not happy with the deal, potentially very unhappy. Maybe that can be fixed. They got Tiger now on the policy board. That's all happening as Live Guy goes to Ryder Cup team. So that we pointed out in our analysis last week on why Koepka would not be chosen. That hasn't changed. That's still going on. There's still bad feelings there. So that's interesting. But if the Ryder Cup goes really well and Koepka performs well, and the show is good, who cares if the U.S. wins, really, from the aristocracy's point of view? They just want a show. They want to have a big show. It's probably better for them that if Europe wins, keeps the rivalry alive better. Do the rank and file really feel better about a joint venture with Liv? I don't know about that. What do you think?
Well, I think the rank and file are being, well, like the rank and file, that they're irrelevant as far as Newco and as far as this deal. And it's a shame, but the whole Newco thing, the whole deal is, well, the most important thing is like we said, you need to grow global golf. And an exciting Ryder Cup is going to grow global golf. And a Brooks Koepka being there is going to bring ratings. And as we didn't mention yet, but the PGA of America and the European Tour, they need the money from the Ryder Cup. They need a successful Ryder Cup. So those are the kind of things we overlooked. And a quick thing I want to interject here: Tiger not being there. We've talked about the Tomorrow Sport rival. Tiger not being there, I think, points to maybe this whole deal is maybe looking better as far as getting done in a reasonable time frame that suits Newco and Al Ramayan, etc. That's a big situation. And putting Koepka there sort of, I don't know that it solidifies things, but it keeps both groups engaged and it keeps the fans engaged. Most golf fans still like a meritocracy, a merit-based system, and Koepka should be there.
Yeah, before we wrap up today, and we will shortly, put a little more detail on the PGA of America owning the Ryder Cup. It's a huge revenue event, huge for them. And Europe desperately needs the revenue. And when it's over in Europe, Europe keeps 60% of the top line of all the TV revenue, everything. And it's widely discussed and estimated that the thing's worth 80 to 100 million top line, which is a lot of money to Europe and to the PGA of America. So they need that revenue. So they are very supportive of whatever the team needs in order to go over there and have the energy. That's the intangible. We can't have the team of great players go over and not want to do well, because that'll hurt the show, which is different than them winning. That's not the same thing. But can you have a team of 12 great players that go over and lose? How many times has that happened in the last 30 years for the U.S.? Plenty of times. They go over and lose to an enthusiastic European team that kicks
every
their tail.
time in the last 30 years.
Yes, because the Europeans are very invested emotionally in winning, because they want to prove that they're not second rate. And that's been the comeback at Medina, big, all of that. So, and that's a great show. So I just want to continue to draw the distinction between rooting for the Americans to win, if you're the PGA of America or the Tour, and having a great show. It's not the same thing. With the win, they're okay with it winning, but if Europe wins, that actually is better for the show. So yes. Now let's wrap with Koepka. What does this say about Koepka that he lobbied? I mean, it's clear now that he's on the team. He lobbied. He wanted to be there. And we said the opposite last week, because it's sure on paper, why does he need this? He doesn't get paid. Not that that's his motive. It's not a major. That was our number one criteria. It's not a major. It's not going to be on his tombstone. Does he care that the Ryder Cup points are on his tombstone? I still think he doesn't care about that particular element of it, but he wants to be there. And there's downside to him. If he goes and plays poorly, doesn't look good for his brand with fans, like, oh, he doesn't work hard enough. There he is showing up, not playing well again, and it's not a major. He doesn't care. He doesn't play enough golf. He's off for 5 weeks between live events. all that stuff is negative. But he doesn't care. He knows that. He doesn't care. And he thinks he can go and play well. This guy is, I mean, you don't win 5 majors. That is obvious without being a real player and mentally. You can win 1 or 2 and just be talented. He's got the mental side of this thing. And that is showing up here. And I think it's a huge feather in his cap. It says a lot about Koepka. If he can go there and play well when he doesn't need to be there at all, and there's a lot of downside, and he's still under that pressure, and he's carrying the load for his pod and is maybe in large part for the team emotionally as the de facto leader now to bring those guys to victory against, you would have to say, a fairly hot top 4 guys on Europe. Hovland, Tyrrell Hatton, Rory, and Rahm are all playing well. You'd expect them to play well on their home soil. Wow, if he can pull that off, then I would predict Koepka will win another 2 majors and have maybe some runway. Even he's 33. It says a lot, all positive. It really, as a golf fan, I'm impressed by Koepka ponying up for this, really. And good for you, Brooks.
He has the self-confidence and the mental game. Just because to show up, think about it. Zach Johnson had to do a 180. I mean, a year ago, let's be honest, the Euros kicked Stenson out of the captainship. Live guys were not allowed to go anywhere near the Ryder Cup.
Yep.
And now Koepka has to represent. He also is representing Live Golf.
Yep.
So the weight on his shoulders is massive. I can't. I'd be shocked if he plays. If he plays well, yeah, he might win. He might get to 10 majors if he plays well in something like this. If he can shoulder this burden, he's got a young child at home, a newborn at home, not a young child. He's got a newborn at home. He's got an event the week before. I'd be shocked if he plays well. If he plays well here, this is beyond impressive.
He's not going to do a lot of. Now he's got time off, so he's going to go over there now.
I hope.
I hope he has to. I mean, come on, he's going to be there. Now he's got plenty of time off to prepare over there currently. Yeah, because
I'm not sure when the
thing in
team's
Chicago,
going over.
the live event in Chicago, he's not going to be too worried about. I mean, let's get real.
Yeah,
I don't know what this does for Live. You'd have to say if I were the tournament director of Chicago for Live, I wouldn't be too happy about this. Koepka's not going to show up and play well. Probably, maybe, hopefully he doesn't. He didn't do well at Bedminster. He doesn't get super motivated unless he wants to be motivated, and then he turns it on. And boy, does he! Another interesting aspect of his approach to golf. But I won't go there now. But I'm impressed. From an athlete's point of view, it's just not. It's rare to find a player that's that confident and gets it done. I mean, that's just rare. Your game can leave you, especially in golf. It's so easy to lose it. It's harder for Tom Brady to lose his quarterbacking abilities. But it's not that hard in golf to just not be on. And then you're shaking a little bit, and then it's pressure, and then it's I don't want to fail. And then because winning means something, obviously means something to him. When he wants to win, it means something. But he's got an interesting cocktail of mental and emotional ability to it's just fascinating. He is a fascinating player, and it's all good. From a fan's point of view, it's just an amazing thing. So we'll be watching. And this is, if the PGA Tour, if Newco could have 20 Brooks Koepkas, that would be awesome for them, because this is the kind of star that you're looking for. And hence the reason that the aristocracy was happy, or not happy, it was totally fine with Brooks being on the Ryder Cup, because he's a star and the show needs to go on, and we're okay with that. And the PGA of America really needs that. So I think that's really super interesting, really interesting. We'll do more on Koepka as time goes along. It's a heck of a case study. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. And what's shocking to me, my last comment here is, it's shocking that the big backlash is that they took JT, who obviously does not deserve to be there when you look at his record, how he's played this year, etc. And virtually no backlash on Koepka being the live guy. We made some other comments in the podcast that I can't probably say on YouTube, but that's shocking. The media's reaction to Koepka being on the team was
vanilla,
zero.
Totally
vanilla.
nothing. They've been bought off. So the aristocracy,
Yeah.
once they decided that PGA of America said we need him because the team needs him. Here's the chain of events. Team said we want him. Seth Waugh says the team wants them, we need them to show up and be plugged in. This show needs to go well. So if the team needs that to motivate themselves, to be happy to go in there and be enthusiastic, then that's what's going to happen. Okay, guys? And the other golfers said, that's fine, Seth. That's fine. We understand. And so that's what's going on. That's where it has to play out, or that's how it's going to play out.
Dr. Darkstar's out.
B Team is out. If you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe to our new audio podcast, Unfiltered and Off Script. That is where you will get topics that'll never get to YouTube. And there are a lot of those that we like to talk about that'll never make it to YouTube. So look in the description below for the link over to Substack. That's where you can subscribe to the podcast. And thank you again for being a fan.